What is the core message of your presentation?
The big takeaway really is how important it is that we revitalize a really rich understanding of the role of religion in our society and its importance and value and contribution to society. One of the big concerns is that religion is seen by many to be dangerous or irrelevant, and so it should be pushed to the sidelines or privatized, and how much religious communities need to stand together to ensure that our society and government understand the important value and role of religion in not only individuals' lives, but the lives of communities and of society in general.
Freedom of religion is a fundamental freedom as defined in both the Canadian Charter and the U.S. Constitution. Does it remain so today in practice?
Interestingly, I think in Canada we see religious freedom being threatened and yet also being supported. So we're in a situation right now where there are many in society who question the value of religious freedom and whether we still need religious freedom, and yet our courts are still robustly protecting religious freedom. We've had numerous cases at the Supreme Court of Canada over the last 5 or 6 years. In all cases, the Supreme Court of Canada has said religious freedom is a fundamental freedom in our society, and we are going to protect that. But religious communities often are feeling threatened or under siege, or that their freedoms are not being valued and protected as much as they would like. And we don't really want to have to go to court every time an issue comes up. We would like to see more of a social acceptance of religious freedom and an understanding of its value in society so that it is naturally protected and enhanced, rather than it just being something for the courts to do.
What institutional and societal constraints exist and should be cause for concern?
I think in many places in Canada where there are religious minorities, particularly ones that are a little bit different or separate or have different values than the rest of the culture around them, there seem to be, the other. And, I think particularly of the Hasidic Jewish community in Montreal, where there are constantly pressures on that community because they dress differently and they act differently and they're a little bit separate from the rest of society. And so in order, I think, for there to be robust protection for religious freedom, there needs to be ways that people can understand religion better. It is not taught in our schools. People don't really understand what religious people believe, why they dress differently, why they have different values. And I think better understanding of the other makes it more likely that we're going to see religious protection and accommodation.
If freedom of religion is a fundamental freedom, can it also be argued to be a foundational freedom?
Religious freedom, I think, is both a fundamental freedom and a foundational freedom. Much of human rights was built on the need to protect religious minorities from persecution, originally in Europe when there were centuries-long religious wars. So incrementally, religious freedom led to freedom of assembly, freedom of the press. So it is in that way both foundational and fundamental. It is sort of the root of the tree of human rights. And so it's important to protect it both as foundational and as fundamental.
Freedom of religion, like other freedoms, is understood to be born and exercised first and foremost by individuals. But what about the role of faith communities or faith-based institutions? Do they exercise these freedoms as communities of faithful individuals?
Religious freedom was originally in Canada under the Charter considered to be an individual freedom. So I have my own freedom to practice my faith. It is only very recently that the courts have started to recognize the importance of religious institutions. So, for example, it was a Catholic high school in Montreal, the Loyola High School case, just in 2015, where the court established that an institution itself has religious freedom to teach and practice its Roman Catholicism in this particular case, from a Roman Catholic perspective, that it could teach its own religion and faith from its own perspective. It is incredibly important that religious institutions and communities be recognized as having religious freedom. It is not just an individual thing. Religion is practiced in communities, and that needs to be recognized as part of a robust protection for religious freedom. You know, Saudi Arabia allows people to practice their faith individually, but forbids all religious practices outside of a particular approach of Islam. Well, most of us don't consider that religious freedom at all. There's no religious freedom if you're allowed to be in your own prayer closet by yourself, having your own prayers, if you can't even say prayers as a family around the table. That's an extremely limited view of religious freedom. So we do need to recognize that religion is practiced by communities, and to recognize that in the practice of religious freedom as well.
How do we ensure, and why must we ensure, the robust exercise of religious freedom within a multi-faith and multicultural society?
Well, Canada is multicultural, but it is also multi-faith, and we have a very wide variety of religions present in Canada. And really, religious freedom for one group is religious freedom for all groups. We can't just say one group has religious freedom and another group doesn't. That's not freedom. Everyone needs to be able to seek God, seek ultimate meaning in their own way and with their own communities. It is helpful when religious communities can dialogue with one another to better understand one another, and to also be together promoting religious freedom.